You're walking down the street. You see a mother holding a baby. The baby gazes up, eyes locked on hers. Coos. You smile. It's the most natural thing in the world. But the real answer is far stranger. What if that baby never saw a human face? What if its first memory was the warmth of a fur-covered belly, the smell of wet earth, and the howl of a wolf pack? You might think this is just a fairy tale, but history has a darker answer, and that answer will change how you see yourself. For centuries, philosophers argued over what makes us human. Is it our soul, our logic, our ability to speak? But the real test is far more brutal. Take a human infant, remove it from human contact, raise it in the wild. What emerges? A savage beast? A noble savage? The truth is much more unsettling. In the 20th century, we found out, not through thought experiments, through real, painful cases, children who grew up without language, without love, without a single human word. And what they became tells you everything about who you are. So what actually happens inside the brain when it misses those deadlines? In 1970, a social worker in Los Angeles found a 13-year-old girl locked in a room. She was tied to a potty chair. She had been there since she was 20 months old. Her name was Genie. She couldn't talk. She couldn't stand. She made sounds like a wounded animal. When she was found, the world was fascinated. Could she be taught? For years, linguists and psychologists worked with her. She learned a few words. She learned to walk. But she never learned grammar. She never learned to express love. She never learned to be a normal person. Why? Because the window had closed. The brain is not a blank slate. It's a building under construction. And if you miss the early deadlines, some parts of the building simply never get built. But what if the absence of love is just as damaging as the absence of language? In the 1930s, an Austrian scientist named Konrad Lorenz made a strange discovery. He was studying geese, and he noticed that when goslings hatched, they would follow the first moving object they saw. Usually it was their mother, but if he was their first, they followed him. They would imprint on him. They would treat him as their mother for life. Lorenz called this a critical period. A fixed window in time where the brain is wired to learn a specific thing. For geese, it was about 24 hours. After that, the window slams shut. For humans, the critical periods are longer. But they are just as real. Language has a critical period. If you don't learn to speak by age 12, you never fully will. This was proven by studies of deaf children who didn't learn sign language until later in life. Their grammar never developed. But language is just the tip of the iceberg. Are humans really just complex geese? Or is there something more going on? You might be thinking, but Genie was locked in a room, not raised by wolves. That was abuse, not nature. Surely a child raised by animals would be different? That's a fair question. But the evidence says otherwise. Cases like Oksana Malaya, found in Ukraine in 1991, living with dogs. She barked, she sniffed, she crawled. She was about 8 years old. After years of rehabilitation, she learned to speak and walk. But her social cognition never fully recovered. She could function, but she was deeply different. The dog years had rewired her. That's because emotional attachment itself has a critical period. But what exactly happens when you take love away from a living creature? In the 1950s, a psychologist named Harlow wanted to know what love was. He took baby monkeys away from their mothers. He gave them 2 surrogate mothers. One was made of wire. It had a bottle of milk. The other was made of soft terry cloth. It had no milk. The monkeys spent their days clinging to the cloth mother. They only went to the wire mother for food. When they were scared, they ran to the cloth mother for comfort. Harlow proved that love was not about food. Love is about contact, about warmth. But here is the horrifying twist. Those monkeys who were raised without real mothers grew up to be broken. They rocked back and forth. They bit themselves. They couldn't form friendships. They couldn't mate. When they had babies, they would ignore them or abuse them. They had no maternal instinct. The instinct had to be learned in the first few months of life. And the same is true for you. Your ability to love. Your ability to trust. your ability to even understand another person's emotions. All of it hinges on those first 2 years of life. So if those first 2 years build the blueprint for every relationship you will ever have, what happens when the blueprint is broken? Can it ever be redrawn? So you're thinking this is all about extreme neglect. I wasn't neglected. I had normal parents. So why should I care? Because the principles are the same. And to prove it, let's look at the most massive natural experiment in human history. In the 1980s, Romania had a horrific policy. They forced women to have babies, but they couldn't afford to raise them. So they were dumped in state-run orphanages. Babies were left in cribs for 18 hours a day. No one spoke to them. No one held them. The staff would feed them, change them, and leave. When they were discovered after the fall of communism, the world saw the results. The children were tiny. They had flat heads from lying on their backs. They couldn't speak. They rocked and swayed like Harlow's monkeys. A team of researchers, led by Michael Rutter, followed these children for decades. They found that if you were adopted before 6 months, you recovered. Your brain could catch up. If you were adopted after 2 years, the damage was permanent. You had lower IQs. You had trouble forming relationships. You were more likely to develop mental illness. But here is the counterintuitive part. Rutter also found that some children were resilient. They overcame the odds. They had high IQs. They formed normal relationships. Why? What protected them? The answer was a single thing: a later, extended period of intense, loving care. If they found one adult who loved them unconditionally, the brain could rewire itself to some extent. So the window isn't completely slammed shut. It's ajar, just a crack. But if even severe damage can be partially repaired, what does that mean for the rest of us with less severe damage? Are we just walking around with half-built blueprints? Here is the life-changing part. Once you know this, you can change it. Psychologists call it earned secure attachment. You can rewire your adult brain through conscious effort, through therapy, through healthy relationships, through simply noticing your patterns and choosing differently. Your brain remains plastic throughout your life. It's not as flexible as a child's brain, but it is flexible. Studies show that just 10 weeks of mindfulness can change the structure of your prefrontal cortex. So what does this mean for you? It means you are not doomed by your childhood. You are not a broken monkey from Harlow's experiment. You have agency. You have awareness. And awareness is the first step toward change. So if your brain can change, what are you going to do with it? So next time you see a mother holding her baby, look at that baby's face. That baby is not just learning to smile. It is learning what love is. It is building the architecture of its soul. And you, right now, are still building yours. The wolves never need to get you. The critical periods come and go. But the human spirit has one last trick. Can relearn, can grow, can change. And that is the strangest, most beautiful truth of all.